So um, I thought I would talk a little bit this morning about just an alternate way of playing diatonic harmonica. Um, and it involves a method that's called half valving. And when we talk about half valving, we're talking about putting wind savers on a diatonic harmonica. Um, when we talk about a wind saver, we're usually talking about a chromatic harmonica. And the term wind saver was kind of given that name because there are so many reed slots on a chromatic that if you didn't shut off some of the reed slots that you're not using, then the thing would sound so airy that you would never be able to get a good tone out of it or never be able to play it well. So that's where the term wind saver came from. I refer to it as a valve because I'm not using it so much as a air saving device as I am as an opening and closing device. Okay. I should preface all this by saying, first of all, that I have not changed the tuning at all. I am still playing Richter tuning on the diatonic harmonica. The tuning itself does not change. I am still able to do everything I could do before on a diatonic Richter tuned harmonica. I'm just now able to do some additional things on the Richter tuned diatonic harmonica. So let me start by just kind of showing you what I'm talking about in terms of valving. So I have one of my Gazelle Method harmonicas with the covers off right now. This is a Seidel 1847 silver harmonica. And this is the top, this is the blow plate. And as you can see, I have put a valve over reed slots 7, 8, 9, and 10 on the blow plate. Okay. Inside, you can see on the first 6 draw slots, there is a valve as well. Here are some reed plates taken off the comb so you can see as well. So let me get the, yeah. So the comb would sit like so in between. Here is again the blow plate. Here again is the draw plate. So these valves sit inside of the harmonica comb, in between the tines, in between the teeth. Okay, so that's, and the reason we call it half valving is because there are 20 reeds on a 10-hole harmonica, 10 blow, 10 draw. And we're putting 6 plus 4 makes 10. So we are half valving the diatonic harmonica is what it amounts to. A little history. Putting a valve in a diatonic is not actually something really new and revolutionary. I'll give you a little bit of history of it. There are a couple of guys, Bernie Bray and Stan Harper, who were pretty much legends in this country, used to put a valve over one note in the diatonic. They would typically put it over hole number, they would put it on the 6th. There we go. They would put it on the 6th draw slot so that they could blow bend hole 6 as a trick and get the major 7th in second position. And everybody, and of course back years ago, anything anybody did to a diatonic, any harmonica was a big secret. Nobody would ever talk about how they did anything, and of course nowadays everybody shares all kinds of information. So putting these guys, I mean, years ago, people understood that they could manipulate the harmonica further by putting a valve into something on a diatonic. So let's fast forward now to about 2000, the year 2000, and Brendan Power, fabulous wizard in the UK, figured out if he put valves on 1 through 6 and 7 through 10, it would make the harmonica more versatile. When I discovered the technique, I fell in love with it right away because of 3 reasons. And these 3 reasons do not have, not none of them are of more value than the other. I consider all 3 of these reasons to be of equal importance as to why I play half-valved. Number 1 is I'm able to fill in the missing notes in the chromatic scale on a diatonic harmonica that's Richter tuned, okay, without having to do overbending a la the Howard Levy technique. The second reason is the logic of how I fill in the extra notes makes much more sense to me than the overbending technique. Anytime we do a bend on a diatonic, we always flat the note. The note always goes flat. Well, with the valving, that follows the same logic. The extra bends that the extra blow bends and the extra draw bends that I'm able to get also are flatted. So the logic of that to me just makes more sense, as opposed to the overbending technique where you have to literally drop down one hole and make the note go sharp to fill in the extra note. That logic just doesn't, that never computed with me. So this makes more sense. And the third reason is I'm able to add expression and shading to all 20 notes on the diatonic harmonica, not just some of them. Now, what do I mean by that? One of the first things we all learn to do on a diatonic, when we learn to bend a note on a diatonic harmonica, most of us learn how to, the easiest one we learn how to do it on is hole 4 draw. So that's 4 draw, and I'm doing a half step bend there. And what do people like about diatonic harmonicas as opposed to chromatic? They like the emotional shading and the voice-like quality that you hear. It sounds almost like human singing, right? Well, I'm now able to do that technique on all 20 notes on the harmonica. So I'll start on the draw notes, which don't involve a valve on the bottom 6 notes, and listen to what I do. Right? So if you know how to bend notes, you can do that right now on an unvalved harmonica, just a regular Richter tuned diatonic. But now if I go to the blow notes on 1 through 6, I can do that same thing. So I've got emotional shading and extra notes by adding a valve where we just discussed. Now let's talk just for a minute about the physics of why this works. When we do a regular conventional bend on an unvalved diatonic harmonica, hole 4 draw, the reason we're able to do that is because of the tuning. This is a C harmonica, okay? Hole 4 blow is a C note. Hole 4 draw is the D note. That means there's a half-step interval available between the blow and the draw note. There's a D flat that's available there. And if we know how to bend a note, we can obtain that half-step bend. And the reason and part of the reason in the physics of a Richter-tuned unvalved diatonic harmonica is both reeds interact at once, the blow and draw reed, to help produce that tone. Now, the physics say, though, you don't really need both reeds to vibrate to produce the tone, okay? It's just easier. It helps you to bend it because both reeds are vibrating to help make that sympathetic tone, that false bent note. When I put a valve over the first 6 draw slots, when I blow into the harmonica, that valve closes across the draw slot, making the draw note inoperable. No air is now passing through that draw slot. I can now do single reed bends on holes 1 through 6. And that means I'm able to now fill in the 2 missing notes in the chromatic scale in the first 2 octaves, which are the E flat and the F sharp. Okay. So on a regular diatonic that doesn't have valves in it, if we're playing in cross harp or second position, I'm going to be missing 2 notes. Starting on 2 draw, that's the G note on a C harmonica. Da, that next note would be missing on a diatonic harmonica. That next note is also there, but it's not the note we want. We want, which is the F sharp. Now, there's another way to skin the cat. Some people do country tuning where they take the 5 draw note and raise it up a half step. That still, however, does not give us the E flat. Okay? So by now having the valve and shutting off the opposite reed I'm trying to manipulate, I can play a full chromatic scale in second position. So here's your E flat, which is 5 blow bend. And the F sharp is the 6 blow bend. Now, surprisingly enough, when we blow bend holes 8 and 9, which doesn't involve a valve, those are blow bends that are available on an unvalved diatonic. That's holes 8 and 9 blow bend. That mirrors what I'm doing on 5 and 6. So the short kind of beauty of this is I'm now able to play just about any lick or riff anywhere on the harmonica because I've got all the notes. What's an example of that? So here, let's just play this riff here. I'm going to use my 7 draw bend, which those are my draw bends, which are normally not available. So if I play a riff starting on 7 draw bend, I'm using a draw bend on 7 and a blow bend on 6. I can mirror that by dropping down and playing it now in the first octave, which doesn't require any valves. So that's kind of the general idea about this. Let's look at, so Sam, you'll have to actually make me a co-host again so I can share here. Okay, so I can share a screen. And Trevor, you're asking, are the single reed blow bends the same bending technique? Great question. So Trevor's asking, are the single reed blow bends the same bending technique as a standard blow bend? I'm going to say yes, but it's with a caveat. Okay, here's the thing. When we do a non-valved bend, you have both reeds helping produce the tone. When you do a single reed bend, you're having to manipulate and hold a single reed. When I first started to play half valved, my technique, my embouchure was not as strong as I needed it to hold and manipulate one reed, right? It took a little bit of time to do that. But after I got used to it and built up the muscles and understood what it was like to do a single reed bend, then it was not a problem anymore. So when I first started, here's a 6 blow bend. When I first started, it kind of sounded like this, kind of weak and a little timid, right? Because I didn't understand, I didn't really have the muscle in the embouchure to do it. But as I practiced and I got used to it and got over the mental hurdle of knowing I could now blow bend hole 6, which is something none of us were ever able to do before, then my technique got better. So, yes and no, Trevor. Yes, the technique is the same, and no, it's not the same until you build up the muscles in your embouchure to do it. Okay. Now we're sharing. Okay. So let me go to here and close this. And here is a actual layout. And this may make more sense to some of you guys that are a little more versed in theory or not versed in theory. So hole 6 right here. Our blow bend is a G. Our draw is an A. Okay. Without the valve, I can't get that F sharp because on the draw, I can draw bend down to A flat. So that's A flat, G. But I don't have the F sharp, okay, without the valve. When I add the valve, I can get the F sharp. Same thing on 5. Notice on 5, there is no half step interval in a Richter tuning. It goes from F to E. So there is no half step available until I shut off the E note. I'm sorry, until I shut off the F note, and then I'm able to blow bend E. Now, you notice a couple of blank spots. That doesn't mean I can't bend number 4 or bend number 3, but they're redundant notes that I don't really need, okay? The B, if I was to blow bend hole 4 down to the B, a half step, the B's already there as a 3 draw, okay? Same thing with G, the F sharp is here too, okay? And they're just it's just kind of redundant. That doesn't mean I can't shade hole 4. And then how I get that, I'm shading that 4 blow for a little emotional content. to me, the half valving just kind of makes this a more complete and musical instrument for me. Okay. Um, when I play stuff like the jazz tune Green Flower, not Green Flower, Green Dolphin Street. I mean, it's all there, and I can get the. So, I mean, it's all there. All the notes are there for me, and it just becomes a more musical and complete instrument. Seidel and I have teamed up to actually do the Gazelle method. The Gazelle method refers to, and I should back up here a little bit, and then we're gonna talk about something else. I'm gonna show you kind of some other stuff without me just sitting here blathering on about technical stuff. The Gazelle method refers to two things, okay? And when I first started playing half valved, the only thing I had available to me were plastic wind savers that are used in chromatics, okay? And I had to cut them down and put them on there and everything. I immediately realized that I could never record with those because the plastic wind savers, the internal ones on the draw plate inside the harmonica here would pop and rattle and stick and were very sensitive to temperature and moisture and everything else, just like any chromatic. You guys that play chromatic realize wind savers are the bane of the instrument. They're a constant problem. Well, they're a constant problem. They can be a constant problem in diatonics too. When I decided I was going to start playing half valved, and I realized I couldn't, I love the technique and I love the possibility. When I realized I wouldn't be able to record because of the noise and the rattling and popping and everything else, I spent about a year experimenting with valve material. And I finally came up with something that is stiff enough to function as an opening and closing device, but soft enough to not pop, rattle, and stick. It's also moisture resistant and temperature resistant. So I basically solved the problem, okay? And the other part, and once I had that problem solved, then I started experimenting with how I set the instrument up in terms of gapping and reed shaping to best accommodate half valve playing, because there's a fine, it's just like anything else with the harmonica. You change one little thing and everything else changes. So the trick was to find the sweet spot in the setup where I could still play it like a regular diatonic and do all that kind of stuff and get my draw bends on 2 and 3. Without affecting how it normally would sound, but be able to also easily play the blow bends and the draw bend, the valved blow bends and draw bends without compromising anything else. So that's kind of what the Gazelle method entails. Let me check the chat here because I see a couple people. I've half valved a G to try out. The draw bends on holes 8 are hard to play. They shriek. Is it my technique, and what can I do to improve it? Great question. And what happens is, here's Josh, here is what I think is going on. It's two things. It's mostly your technique, but it's also partially the gapping. Okay. The gapping needs to be just a little bit bigger on 7, 8, 9, and 10 draw notes, because you want to be able to hit that note without it choking out. But the shrieking pretty much comes from not having the tight enough embouchure. Okay. And this is something you have to develop. It's more of a refined and a focused airstream. When we blow bend notes at the top of the harmonica, that's a different technique than it is when we basically do draw bends at the bottom of a diatonic. Those happen a little bit further back in our throat. The blow bending at the top requires that almost concentrated beam of focused air pressure to control those very tiny little short blow bend reeds at the top of the harmonica. That technique is basically the first step in learning how to do valve bending. It's a more focused, it happens more towards the front of the mouth, and it's a more focused and refined airflow, okay, to do that. And that carries down to your other valved bends. So whatever technique, if you can successfully blow bend holes 8 and 9, you have to kind of remember what that technique is you're doing to get a good however you're able to do that, like I'm doing it, then you just simply drop down and play that now on 5 and 6. The draw bends are exactly the same, except it's in reverse, right? But it's still that tighter, more pronounced front of mouth embouchure. So I hope that helps clear that up, because I think that's a Jim. Is this the same as a Suzuki MR350? Is that if that's the ProMaster? Yes, they make a. No, don't they? Isn't it called an MVR or something? Yes, it is. It's the same idea, but they use the plastic wind savers. Okay, and sidles are obviously stainless steel. So the concept, Jim, is the same. The material, they're using brass and we're using stainless steel, and their valve material is radically different than what I'm using. Bob. Bob, your name looks familiar. I know you from somewhere, I think. Hi, PT. I play solely half valve, mostly on Lee Oscars. Okay. Do you think the longer, narrower reeds in the sidle play better when half valve than the broader? To be honest with you, I can't answer that question, Bob, because I don't really have any Lee Oscars. Yes, the reed profile is different. It's like the Suzuki's. It's the wider, shorter profile than the longer and narrower like Seidel and Hohner. I can't honestly answer that question because I've had no experience doing that. I know on a Hohner, they work fine, because before I actually got in business with Seidel, I was actually playing Honers. So, and they worked fine. They worked just fine. Let me show you. We can close that. Here is the two models that we sell. Here is the 1847 silver, and this is very similar to what, if you're playing a marine band harmonica, it's that traditional style where the reed plate extends out to the front of the comb, and it's got more of the traditional cover plate. Okay, the comb itself on this model is, I've got that picture somewhere if I can find it. Is this it? And I can't get to it. Why? Oh, here. I may not have that picture up. It's the white comb. Uh, it's the white polymer comb. It's a solid piece of polymer, and it's got 2% foam injected into it in the process, so that when you mate the reed plate to it, there's just enough give to give you a really tight, nice seal. Okay, very airtight. Um, the other model is uh, the session steel. Here it is the session steel. And this model is similar if you're used to playing like a Special 20 or a Lee Oscar. It's the same idea where it's recessed reed plates. The reeds sit down in a slot just a little bit in back of the mouthpiece, right? The comb on this one is just a simple ABS plastic. The price difference between the two is like $30 US. And the reason is the comb. This is a very lightweight plastic comb, and the other one is a solid piece of polymer. Now, having said that, is it a cheaper harmonica? I've got so many clients that prefer to play this one for the comfort that no, I would not say that. I prefer the other one because I grew up playing marine band, and I'm just used to that style. I'm used to that, the way that feels. Uh, Does half valving put more strain on the reeds? Absolutely not. No. Second question, are your sidles modified by Rupert or are they pretty much standard? Here's what happened, Bob. I showed Seidel what I know, okay, what I came up with. I supply Seidel with the valving material. I also, excuse me, worked with them to show them how I set up the instrument. And they do that at the factory, okay? So when you're getting, if you buy one from the Seidel website, you should be getting something that's very, very close to what I play. In this country, what I find is due to taxes and shipping and VAT, I guess you guys are not in the European Union anymore, so I'm not sure if VAT is coming from me would be an issue, but I don't know that for sure. What I find is outside the US, most people are buying these models from Seidel. In the US, most people are buying them from me from my website, because I go back through them again. Seidel does a great job setting them up, but I go back through again, and I tweak them even further because, again, it's a personal instrument. Nobody at the Seidel factory knows exactly how I play. It's impossible to know that. I can kind of get them close in terms of the gapping and the setup, but it's all individual. I'm looking at just some names here, and Robin Andrews, for instance, is going to play different than PT Gazelle. He's just going to play different. Stewart's going to play different. So I go back through it again and I try to get it exactly like my personal instruments. Now, when you get it, you may love it. And then again, you may go, that's just still a little bit too tight for me, or that's a little bit too loose for me. It depends on your playing. A guitar player is going to adjust the bridge on his guitar and for the fingering. So anyway, So Rupert doesn't really modify them at all. Rupert is simply the distributor for this country, okay, for the US. Um, yes, the valves on the MR350 tend to stick when a bit wet, especially at the low end. Absolutely. It's a great harmonica, but I couldn't use it to play publicly, and it's certainly not to record because of the popping, sticking, rattling, and everything else. Um, so that's how I kind of went on this quest to. So if I tape my 6 draw holes shut, will this give me the feel? It should, because well, I don't have an unvalved harmonica here, but you could literally put your you could, if this wasn't valved, you could, on the blow note, on 6 blow, I could put my thumb over the draw reed and just not let it vibrate and get the same effect. So yes, that answer is yes. What else? So what's the advantage? I mean, like, how many of you guys, and again, we're talking about 2 different cultures here, but how many of you guys are familiar with an old 1950s, late 50s song called Sleepwalk? Anybody? Okay. Well, that may not be the best example. So maybe a better example, the Rodgers and Hart tune, My Romance. How about that one? Anybody know that tune? I'm getting a lot of head shakes. Good. So in second position, I'm missing the major 7th to try and play that melody. Do that next note is not there. That's the major 7th, or the in key of in on a C harmonica, that would be the F sharp. Okay. I can now do that by blow bending hole 6. That's me shading 5 blow. That's me shading 6, hole 6. It becomes a much more musical instrument to me than it was before. Okay. Does it change the sound of the harmonica? A little bit. It absolutely does, because on an unvalved diatonic, air is constantly passing through both reed slots of whatever hole you're on. Okay. By shutting some of it off, I'm making it more like a chromatic a little bit. Let's talk about the spectrum of sound there. If I have an unvalved diatonic all the way over on this side of the sound spectrum, and I've got a chromatic all the way over on this side of the sound spectrum, when I half valve the diatonic, in my opinion, I move the sound of the diatonic to about here, a little bit towards the chromatic. If I was strictly a Chicago style blues player or a pre-war blues player, I'm not sure I would like this. But if I'm a melody player and a jazz player and a swing player, I love this. For me, it works great for me. Okay. It gives me everything I ever wanted on the instrument that I didn't have before this. I can play any melody. I can play, another example, Secret Love. Now, that's all easy on a diatonic. That's all there. But now we go to the B part. You got to have the you have to have the you have to have that E flat in second position on a C harmonica, and you have to have the F sharp, or you can't play that without switching harmonicas or something. So for me, it works. I just really like the way it does. So let's see what else here. Do you play half valve for all genres? I absolutely do. Josh, I actually do. I would find it very hard to play anymore without the valves. Okay, I've just become accustomed, even in my soloing, to having all the notes. So it's all there. I mean, I can pretty much, as I showed a little while ago, one of the ways I teach how to do this is take your favorite lick at the bottom of the harmonica, just for example. Now, when I have valved harmonica, you should be able to figure out how to play it in another octave. Okay. I got a couple other questions here. Hi, I'm being lazy. Please, can I unmute and ask you? Absolutely.
Sorry, yes, it's probably quite a longish question to write down. I'm just interested in the sort of evolution. You mentioned that Brendan was using it in the early 2000s. Now, in probably about 2012, I bought a Suzuki Sub 30 that Brendan
Yep.
had developed, which was great. You know, you got exactly the same effects. I think there was
Yep.
some sacrificial. I don't know. I can't remember what he called them, but almost like redundant reeds, I think. But
Mm-hmm.
why did he not stay with the half valve method? Why did he move on
I
to that?
don't know. I think he felt like he didn't want to devote the time um, to dial in the embouchure. Plus, he plays chromatic, and what he was doing was also taking um, half the valves off of a chromatic and playing half valve chromatic, which made it sound a little airier, but he was able to get all the shading that I'm getting. He was able to do all that because he only had half the valves on instead of fully valved. As those of you that play uh, chromatic know, when it's fully valved, it becomes a little harder to actually shade or bend notes, okay, than it does if some of the valves are missing. Um, Plus, Brendan is, oh my gosh, he's such a wizard. I mean, I honestly think he comes up with one idea, and in 5 seconds later, he comes up with something else, and he just moves on. I mean, he's scary intelligent, in my opinion. The Sub 30 was similar to the XB40 that came out, except it was it was this size harmonica rather than that bigger thing that Hohner came out with, that XB40. It's the same thing. It's got what they call zero gap reeds in it, so that you could basically, the bottom line here, Sam, is that you could basically do double reed bends across the entire spectrum of the harmonica, as opposed to what I'm doing here, which is having to do single reed bends when I do a valved bend. Okay. Um, there's a lot of parts and a lot of things that have to be maintained in that harmonica. It's and a lot of things that can go crazy. And just for me, it plays too easy. I know this sounds crazy, but for me, it played much too easy. I couldn't control the notes well enough when I mean, I could go way past the bend that I was trying to hit on pitch. I didn't want to have to play that light. I wanted to be able at times to be able to play a little more aggressively, okay, or quietly. So that seems counterintuitive, but that's honestly my assessment of it. Um,
No, that's great. It's good to know the difference.
what I found is that converting harps to paddy and easy third and playing mainly in first, I end up with instruments that play a stronger note on the blow. Some I was just experimenting with because they were weak sounding, ended up much stronger. Yes, I would agree with that to an extent. I also think what some of the comments that I get from people about playing the Gazelle Method half valved harmonica is that the blow notes instantly become more powerful and more full sounding because of the valve. The whole instrument becomes a little more airtight. For those of you that know anything about high-tech customizing, they emboss reed slots. And what does that mean? They narrow the reed slot by working the material and making the reed slot narrower so that the reed itself has less tolerance to swing up and down. Well, guess what? When I put a valve in here, I've basically done the same thing. So you're getting a much more airtight sounding harmonica to start with. It sounds a little tighter, but that's part of what the tone is also changing there too. So again, if I was strictly a Chicago style blues guy, I'm not sure I would care for this. But there are a lot of people who want to play melody and like playing diatonic and still want to be able to do most of the stuff they could do on diatonic before. And I think this is a great, I think it's a great alternative. In addition, um, and I'm surprised nobody has asked this, if there's any difference in doing this technique if you're strictly a tongue blocker or if you're a lip purser. Well, I think lip pursing is actually easier to do this technique. But having said that, I've got two longtime students that have been studying with me who play tongue blocking and can do it just fine. So again, it's about building up your embouchure and learning how to do these bends a little bit further forward in the mouth and a little bit more focused and more refined. What I found, and I've been doing this now since 2003. I started playing valved in 2003. As I got better at the valved bending, my bending technique across the entire spectrum of the harmonica got better because my embouchure got better. So, uh, Sam, I'm going to put my website in the chat.
Okay, so there's a question here from Yoss, and it was
Okay.
something that I was going to ask as well. Was
Okay.
do you play half valved for all genres of music?
Yes, I do. Yes, I thought I had answered that earlier, but yes, I do.
Oh, sorry.
Um, I started out my career playing, doing folk music and then bluegrass, and then when I moved to Nashville, I did, country. I made a living playing country, and I still play all those genres, but I've just now use half valved. It doesn't really get in the way of what I'm doing.
So would you use? I mean, presumably, if you're playing like more bluesy stuff or
Okay.
country, you'd use the different keyed harps. But say if you were playing jazz or
Hmm.
more jazzy stuff, would you just stick to a C or do you vary
No,
that up as well?
no, I vary it up. It just depends. It depends on what I'm trying to do. Um, where's that harmonica? Here. Um, yeah, it just depends on the position for me just depends on what I'm trying to do. A Stevie Wonder tune called "Lately" from his "Hotter Than July" CD from years ago. Third position, major, seemed to work better for me to play that. Okay. And again, that's not involving any valves at all. That's me just being able to play on the first octave and being able to play the semitone bends on 2 and 3 draw that are available. Another example, the Billy Strayhorn tune, Lush Life. Okay. I found I can play that better in first position. Okay. So I mean it just depends. Well, what's a third example? A third example, the Beatles tune, Yesterday, 12th position. Again, no valves needed. Okay. It just kind of lays better. It just depends on what the sweet spot is for me. In terms of being able to play everything on one harmonica, no, I'm pretty good in about 5 or 6 positions. I'm pretty good in first, second, third major, and 12th. In minor, my go-to minor position is actually fifth position. I try to do stuff in fifth position before I try to do it anywhere else. And with the valves in the half valving, fifth position is a lovely position. I mean, it's just let's see what's the I mean, it lays really nice in fifth. And I love fifth. Third's great too. Uh, it just it just depends. It just depends on what I have to do or what I'm hearing. Now, do I want to play? Do I really want to play in D flat on a C harmonica? No, I don't want to do that because to me, I'm trying to entertain. I'm not trying to do some kind of parlor trick to show off. I mean, the gymnastics of having to play in D flat on a C harmonica, even though I have all the notes, no, thank you. I don't want to do that. So. Looks like we have one other question. I'm not great on blow bends, but my covers off blocking off 6 draw. I was able to play the blow bend with very little embouchure adjustment. Not scary change in technique at all. Excellent, Jerry. Good. Well, that's the idea. And again, part of what I've found was I not only had to learn the technique, but I also had to get over the mental hurdle of knowing that I could now blow bend holes 1 through 6. Because I mean, I played 30 years and you just, well, I can't do that. That doesn't work on a diatonic. So I had to block that out and just let my technique take over. Okay. But once you get used to it, it's just kind of, it's become second nature. It's like learning how to draw. It's like learning how to draw bend hole 4 when you start. How many of you guys can actually bend notes on a diatonic? Well, when you first learn to do it, and I remember this vividly in my case, I mean, I sat there and moved my mouth and tried and struggled and everything else. And then finally one day I squeaked out a bend on hole 4 draw. I went, "Ah!" And I went, oh, there it is. And I spent the next 2 hours and I bent the hell out of the note. And then the next day I got up and I couldn't remember how to do it. I had to relearn it again. I had to teach myself the technique again until it became second nature. Then it was just second nature to bend notes. Same thing with valve bending. You'll get it, then you'll forget, and you have to come back the next day and you have to sit. And what I have found is one of the easiest things to do is to just take like hole 6 blow and go, and just do from repetitive motion of neutral bent to just so it becomes rote memory when you go to play the note. It's not so traumatic that you have to think about it anymore. Looks like we have another question here. Would the valve material in your harps be okay? No, I don't recommend putting them in an ultrasonic. It's a synthetic material. Do I have any laying around? Yeah, here's some right here. It's a synthetic material that basically stretches in one direction only, and it doesn't have much stretch. It's just got a little bit of give. Um, no, I don't recommend that because even though it is a synthetic, I don't know what it would be like to get it thoroughly wet and then have it dry. Chances are it would curl, would be my guess, like anything else. Um, so what I recommend is, and thankfully nowadays harmonicas come completely apart. What I do is I take the cover plates and the comb and I take them and I use a liquid soap, hot liquid soapy water, and I get it my hands nice and soapy, and I scrub the comb. I have a little bottle brush I can get in between, in the tines of the comb, um, and the cover plates, and I get those clean and I dry them off. The reed plates, I simply what I do is I brush away material here, being careful to go in the direction of the tip, right? I brush away debris, and then I take a soft lint-free cloth and I clean them with alcohol and I put them back together. And that in my what I have found is that most of the debris, most of the stuff accumulates right under the lip of the cover plate. And when you take that off, and you can just kind of get rid of that and brush it off with that little brush and then go clean it with hot soapy water. And the comb itself, you get that clean. I don't really ever see much junk on the reeds themselves. On this 1847, it's got this little groove here that I clean, and that's where, if anything accumulates, that's kind of where it accumulates there. Now, having said that, I'm a pretty dry player. I'm not extremely wet when I play. So it's going to vary from player to player. How long do the valves last? My valves typically last 4 to 5 years, believe it or not, before I change them. I have customers at 1 year, they need new valves. A valve is a valve is a valve. At some point, it's going to have to be changed.
Just a question that's come to me, PT. Can you sort of back valve harmonicas? So, for example, if you've bought an unvalved harmonica, are you able to get valves then put on those?
You should be able to, unless, and I don't know, again, I don't have that much experience with Lee Oscars. And the original iteration of Special 20s used to have a horizontal bar that ran across the comb. Okay, that would eliminate you being able to put a valve in there because the valve has to go up and down, right? But short of that, it should work just fine. I mean, there shouldn't be any problem.
Yeah,
Shouldn't be any problem.
I swear by 1847s as everyone who attends this session. I meant to be impartial, but
Right, right.
but no,
Well,
sorry, I was going to say was I've just been playing around with fifth position because I like that as well.
yeah,
And I can sort of almost see the possibilities. Certainly, dropping, say, with your blow two being your home note, you just to be able to to bend that down a little bit.
yep,
I can really see the sort of the benefit of that
yep,
because there's scope to do a lot of bending on holes 2 and 3, isn't there, on fifth position.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fifth. That's fifth position. I'm using one blow bend and two blow bend. So, you know, yeah, I mean, I just love fifth. I just think fifth to me is a real natural position to play in. It almost emulates cross harp, except it's, you know, except it's not. So,
Yeah, almost like is it the relative minor of a cross harp? Is it?
well, that
Yeah,
kind
pretty
of,
much.
kind of,
Yeah.
sort of. It's interesting. The old timers in this country, in fact, Charlie McCoy, still refers to fifth position as double cross position, which I don't understand. I don't know what the chronology is there, but he refers to it as double cross position. I don't know. Maybe somebody knows what that is. I don't. No. Let's see here. We got some other people chimed in. Thank you, Pete. Pete says, great tone. Joss, I valved an East top with Hohner I bought for my chromatic harmonica. Works great. Sure. Yeah, it will. Here's the other thing. What you'll find is that from the key of about D flat up through regular F sharp, you won't get much clicking and popping with a plastic wind saver. As soon as you move down, you will. Now, I don't understand really the physics of that, but you will. You will find that they become noisier with the lower pitched harmonicas. Uh, I guess I do need another harmonica or two from Jerry. Okay. Uh, would the valve material in your harps be okay to use? No, we covered that in the ultrasonic. Yeah, and I don't know what the situation. I'm not sure if the situation has changed in the UK because you're no longer in the EU. But I've recently had a couple people buy from me that wanted them sent to the UK, and I think when they compared buying it from Seidel in Germany now as opposed to me doing it and sending it to them, I'm not sure the price was really any different anymore because didn't the VAT the VAT change when you guys left the EU? Didn't some of that change?
I think you possibly know more than us.
Yeah,
I,
I
I,
think
I, I think they replaced it with another tax if it's coming from the
yeah.
EU to England. Not that is internal to England or
Okay.
Great Britain, but they. If I've had anything from Europe, it changes into another form of tax, of course.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the couple people that I sent them to, I quoted them what it would be with the shipping, and they were fine with it. So I don't know. I may be way off base there, and they just wanted it from me. So
I noticed we've actually got Lars from Seidel here. I don't know if you want to say a few words about these harmonicas, Lars. Do you want to say anything or no? Happy to listen.
Lars,
Lars is
well,
here, yeah.
well, there's royalty in the house, isn't there? Okay.
No, no royalty.
How are you, Lars?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you.
Good, good.
Yeah. But I leave it all to you, so you make it perfect job here.
Okay. I just as a thought, folks. I can't tell you what a great company. I mean, whether you like Seidel harmonicas or not, I can't tell you what a great company this is without going on and on. I've never dealt with such great people in my life. I mean, it's just absolutely trouble free every single day of the year, and it was the best thing that I ever did. It was the best thing I ever did. So let's see what else. It might be import tax. It sounds like your valve material would be great in chromatics. Good question. Who is that, Trevor? Here's the problem. You can't, we tried it. I tried it. I mean, I had the same thought and I thought, well, this works great in here. We should be able to, provide a revolutionary step up for chromatic players. Because the chromatic is valved on top and bottom of each reed plate, there would be valves here too, because you have extra reed slots. You got more reeds in between the reeds you're seeing now, right? Because it's on the bottom side as well, the valve material is going to droop. My valve material is going to droop, and kind of gravity is going to take over. Okay. So mine only really is designed for a diatonic because both are sitting basically on the top of the reed plates and not the bottom sides. Seidel, I don't know if they fit other chromatics, but they make a dimpled valve. I know that is an excellent valve. It's a two-layer valve for chromatics, and they're using their chromatics. I don't know if they would fit Honers or not. I'm not sure, but they make an excellent plastic wind saver for their chromatics. But yeah, great question. No, it would not work. Yeah, I was sure I had solved that problem until I tried it, and I went, that's not going to work. So let's see what else we got here. For anyone tempted to try doing their own, I experiment with a number of materials. Micro suede is best. Loom tape works, and micro pour tape works. These are the best three I've found, but won't be anywhere near as PT's. The bar and some combs can be removed, but it all seems to work okay. Yes, Stuart, that's all good information. And basically, my material is a form of micro. Micro suede? Mine's ultra suede, but the problem is when you Google ultra suede or micro suede, there are dozens of these things. Okay. And I tried many of them before I found one that really fit but you're talking about the right thing here. Yeah. You're talking about the right thing. I mean, there are some micro suedes and ultra suedes that I looked at that were worse than plastic. Okay. But some of them are spot on. And that's one of the ones that I came up with. So,
okay. Do we have any other questions at all? No. I mean, one thing that I find so fascinating about these sessions, PT, is that the harmonica is, in terms of customizing or changing the tunings, the harmonica is an absolutely wonderful instrument for that, as we've seen with what Brendan has done with it. And again, hearing what you've said today just adds another layer of color to the wonderful instrument that we all play and we love. It's tremendous, really is.
I still find it endlessly interesting. I find it endlessly interesting, and again, it's the craziest instrument, because if you change one little thing in it, it's crazy. I mean, it just changes the whole nature of the instrument. So, for more information, visit my website. I put it in the chat. It's easy, ptgazelle.com. All my music is there. All my music is downloadable. The instruments are for sale there. If you want me to make you one, Seidel does a great job doing it as well. They have the same two models. So if you want something custom besides the two models that Seidel makes, if you want, for instance, if you want it with their stainless steel comb, for instance, rather than the combs that I offer, shoot me an email. I mean, I can make them. It's not, all their stuff is interchangeable, so it's easy, you know.
Okay.